Hey everybody, welcome back to Nerd News Today. I'm Matthew, and today we've got a statue review of a character that is really quite unique looking, and to be fair, this piece looks equally as one of a kind. That's because today we're looking at the very hefty MODOK. And this is the Marvel Comics version of MODOK, not the version most recently seen in the MCU in one of the Ant-Man films. This enormous-headed villain has a lot of cool merchandise out there because, to be fair, his design is awesome. I love looking at MODOK merch. I have surprisingly a lot more than I would think that I have, but I've got action figures of him from back in the 90s and even some of the Marvel Legends today, so I guess I'm a fan of this guy? Who knew? I want to get into this review right away here, so real quick, let's just talk about this packaging here, and it's not too different from anything that you've seen in the past. And I say that because, like all Diamond Select PVC figure diorama statues, this MODOK here is no different. We have an enormous window on the front that lets you see right on into the packaging and give you a great big glimpse of this big-headed monstrosity. You've also got a classic MODOK logo on the very bottom of this packaging, which is very nice to look at as well. I didn't know MODOK had his own logo, but unsurprisingly, it's a pretty thick, wide font, just like the shape of his head. In addition to that window on the front, you also have windows on two sides of the packaging. And as always, there's that Diamond Select sunroof. Because if anybody needs some vitamin D from the sun, it's gonna be MODOK. Like really, this would help his mood so much. The back of the packaging has a little nice bio about who MODOK is, as well as an image of this statue. With one curious change here, and this is kind of interesting, you might notice here that our image of MODOK doesn't seem to have something that his statue has. It might not be the most easy thing to see right now, but when we take a look at him out of the packaging, you're going to see it. But MODOK has a little bit of a laser beam thing coming out of his forehead. But on the back of the box, it doesn't seem to be there. So I don't know if that means that that piece is going to be removable. I don't know if that's just because this was an earlier prototype. Who knows? We're going to find out in a few moments. But yeah, kind of just a fun little thing to note. Now besides that, it just tells us a little bit more about what the statue is, and it gives us the credits to this piece, which are the most important thing about the packaging. This MODOK was designed by Nelson Asensio and sculpted by Alterton. Now there's one last thing I want to say about this before we get him out of the box, and that's that this is easily the heaviest PVC figure diorama piece I have ever reviewed in this entire time of this YouTube channel. I don't know what it is about this MODOK, but this thing, like, it weighs a ton. He must be solid. You know, like normally these things are like, you know, hollow because that's how they're put together, that's how they're manufactured, but something about this piece, I don't know what's going on here, but this guy weighs so much. And for comparison's sake, I have a resin piece right here. This is a resin half-scale bust. It's going to be on this channel as well. And yeah, in both hands, I can tell you for a fact this MODOK weighs more than a resin piece. I don't know what's going on here, so yeah, I'm very curious to see how this guy's actually built. So without further ado, let's go ahead and stop giving me such a upper body workout. Let's unbox our MODOK and take a closer look at him from all angles. And here we go. Here is our MODOK out of the box. And man, this is like probably one of the most accurate looking pieces I feel like I've ever seen from Diamond Select. And that's a really high praise for a piece like this, because man, MODOK is just like, you know, I said it before, and I do love this character, but he's also one of the dumbest looking characters. I think that's why I love him so much, because everything about this, it just screams like, what am I looking at, and why does it work so well? So, man, this MODOK, you can see it right now as we kind of do a quick rotation with him. Man, he is something else. That is definitely the word to use here. He is something else. But that's like one of the best things I can say about him, because this is a pretty outstanding piece. And this is my first time seeing it kind of rotate as well, and I'm really, really impressed by a lot of what I'm seeing here, and I start to feel like now I'm understanding why this thing weighs like 3 metric tons. So, man, this is this is a pretty wild looking piece here. All right, so let's go ahead. First things first, let's talk about that face, because that is a face only a mother could love. Do you think MODOK has a mother? Actually, I don't want to know. Forget it. So yeah, this MODOK face, it just looks like it's straight from an Avengers comic or a Captain America comic. That's perfect. That's the exact face I want to see with this guy here. I mean, all these hideous looking wrinkles, this wonderful grimace that is just signature MODOK, his weird little beady eyes with the bangs underneath him, that, yeah, this just is very striking. It's such a weird, wrinkly raisin of a face. And what's fun about this, too, is that it's not really a photorealistic piece in any way whatsoever. This is a piece that really revels in the absurd, and they're not trying to shy away from that either. The artists know the fact that this is a wacky-looking character, and they're going to have a lot of fun with him, and it's pretty clear to me that they absolutely did. They must have had a blast doing some stuff on this guy here. That is a great face. Now, one thing I do want to test while we're here is this piece right on top here. So a lot of diamond and PVC pieces, they use these transparent plastic effects to kind of add some cool stuff, add some cool elements. I'm curious if it actually is removable it's okay, it's not. You know, based on the way it looked in the packaging, again, I couldn't really tell, and I figured it wasn't, because most of the time they're not removable, but yeah, for a fact, I can confirm that that little beam on his head is not removable. That is staying put, it looks like. If it does come off, you might want to get a new statue. So that's how that looks. I do want to talk about his hair for a second too, because that is the classic MODOK bowl cut. I mean, it's a great looking texture. It's just so silly looking too. It's hard not to like that. And we'll just take a look. You know, this kind of starts going into a different part of him, I guess, some of the mechanical bits of him. But yeah, this is the back of the head. So really, as far as likeness goes, I mean, I'm not going to start nitpicking over what's what on his weird looking little body here. But I am going to say, as far as that face goes, that's definitely what I was hoping for at MODOK, and that does not disappoint. Now, the nice thing about talking about MODOK is I can just seamlessly transition into his body because it's basically the same thing. It really is. And that's why we love MODOK. So check it out. He's got his two little tiny arms here, his two little wee legs hanging off the side of his MODOK device there. And they're kind of shiny too, which is really pleasant to look at. They have a good little glisten to them because for the most part, it's actually surprisingly more of a matte finish than you'd think. I mean, the face is a matte finish, but this like sort of gold look over here, it's got a little bit of a shine to it, but it's not like a super shiny gold, I guess. I mean, from the back, it definitely does look a little bit more like it's got some shiny elements to it, but it's not like, you know, there's other statues we've looked at that were way shinier, but it still does a great job of looking very reflective and glistening in the light. So mission accomplished there. At the very least, they have that effect going for them. So one of the coolest things about MODOK, though, is the way he's designed and just how this whole, I don't even know what to call it, this whole robotic getup is going to look for him. So, you know, you've got the awesome looking little voice synthesizer Kirby thing going on there. There's just so many little mechanical bits here, and they all look great. There's a lot of good detail, a lot of nice paint application in this section too, because for the most part, MODOK doesn't really have a lot of highly detailed things to paint with him, but he is a mechanical being that is meant to be a very precise looking character. So if you do have any sloppiness, it's going to look noticeable and very much out of place. One of the sections I was worried about with that was in fact the back of his head, because we have this like big whole section over here, and there's not really any slop worth mentioning. There's really like one or two little nooks that are kind of off, but not really enough to worry me. From a distance, it's not going to make a real big change. I do like how this kind of just looks like an old-fashioned Iron Man helmet here. Am I right? Come on. Or it's like some like 1930s movie, black and white movie robot, or I should say a robot, because that'd be more accurate to the terms of the time. But yeah, just great designs. You know, keep in mind that MODOK is basically just a giant cylinder. He's a very squat cylinder. So you got to work with those shapes, which is kind of interesting. So they're doing that here, and the shapes that they're using kind of help emphasize his own very rotund sort of look here. But the square bits and these sharper corners are a nice contrast to that piece and make him look maybe a little more threatening, perhaps. And from behind, it's a little hard to say, but from the front, you can probably see it a little bit better. I mean, he does have a lot of these sort of more horizontal elements to him, and that works really well with this round design of this fairly rotund-looking character. And again, he's just such a cool-looking character. He really is. No matter how you look at this guy, this thing is just great. I love how he has this one hand, too, on the controls as well. On the other hand, he's just kind of like menacingly going like, yeah, Captain America, you suck. Which, you know, that's probably a thing MODOK would say, right? All right, let's go ahead and take a look at that base now, because that's a really cool base also. I have to admit, I was not sure what to expect with that base, and that might be what weighs the most here. Again, I'm still not sure which part of it weighs the most, but yeah, this base is pretty great. So we have him essentially lifting off from what I would assume is like AIM headquarters or something. And it's got this really great transparent smoke effect here, which is painted really, really nicely. A lot of good detail in this paint job, actually. It's probably one of the more detailed paint applications we've seen in the transparent plastic section, because you have sort of a transition from a dark gray into a smoky, cloudy white. And then around that, you have the takeoff effect, where it's now kind of more orange. And hopefully you guys can see it on camera, but there's actually like a much deeper orange in there as well. It almost looks like Cheeto powder, to be quite honest, but it's nice and colorful, and that is very nice. And it also kind of does mirror a little bit of the colors that we have in MODOK's body. You know, this is a golden kind of color here, so having a yellow-orange look does help it, and it also works too with the purple arms and the purple limbs. That's just basic color theory, but you know, it does look really great here in statue form. That's a smart choice. And that's a good way also to keep MODOK up in the air, because otherwise the statue really makes zero sense. I mean, you can't just have him sitting down. You kind of had to be floating in some capacity, so they've accomplished that here. And another thing I liked about the base too, I'll give you guys a quick rotation so you can see it better. But it's got a lot of good detail here. And again, we're talking about kind of like cementing the character into a point in space. And MODOK is very cylindrical. These jet flame bursts are very cylindrical too. So having this very square base repeats some of the square shapes that we saw earlier on MODOK's body and really does center him into an environment. Because otherwise he's just kind of floating around doing nothing. But with this really impressive looking base, which also has some nice texture and a very excellent paint job, I mean, he really has a presence now. And that presence is very, very welcome in putting this character into some kind of relevance to what he's doing and telling the story of what this piece is all about. I mean, quite honestly, I don't really have anything bad to say about this piece. It's just a weird piece because it's MODOK, and who would expect him to have such a really good-looking statue? But here we are in 2023, and MODOK has, man, a really, really impressive-looking piece from Diamond Select here. The paint is wonderful. The pose is wonderful. You know, I didn't really talk a lot about the pose, did I? That's because there's not really much to say with it, because he's just MODOK. He's in that giant, weird gold contraption, and he's blasting off like you see here, we've already talked about. So, you know, I can't even go into detail about that, but as far as this guy and how he looks, I mean, this is superb. This is a stellar-looking statue, and for a character who, yes, does have a few really great action figures, you know, as far as statues go, I think this is a really solid way, pun intended considering how much this piece weighs, this is a very solid way to get this character and add him to your statue collection at a fairly affordable price. Keep in mind, he is going to be a little bit more expensive, and prices will vary depending on where you buy him from, but MODOK will be a little bit more expensive just based purely on the fact that he is a big boy. He weighs a lot more, so they're going to charge you more to get him, but I'd say it's worth it. And speaking of worth it, if you'd like to add this MODOK to your collection, why not go ahead and check out some of my affiliate links in the description of this video below. If you click on any of those links, they support this YouTube channel at no extra cost to you, and we'd be very grateful if you did. So that's our look at Diamond Select's Marvel Gallery PVC figure diorama statue of MODOK. Really great piece. Who would have known that MODOK would have had like one of the best pieces I've seen this year, but it really is. It's worth the high praise. So until next time, I'm Matthew. This has been Nerd News Today. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys here next time at more figure unboxings, statue reviews, and everything else we do here on the channel.